Tonight, negotiations continue over the government's gambling reform bills. Labor is now offering an opt-out register for gambling ads and some restrictions on inducements. But for the Greens and the crossbench, it still falls way short. Senator Hanson-Young was the deputy chair of the recent gambling inquiry. Sarah Hanson-Young, welcome.
Thanks for having me, Sarah.
Now, looking at what appears to be on the table, a new single-service opt-out register for gambling ads and some restrictions on inducements, although we don't have the detail yet. Is there enough on the table for you to support this legislation?
Well, sadly not, Sarah, but let me just make one point here. You know, this is a piece of legislation that the Prime Minister himself said there'd be no changes to. The Senate could take it or leave it. So we've obviously managed to shift the Prime Minister somewhat. The government has had to accept that the community expectation of what they would do to curb the harm of gambling advertising, that it needed to be more. What was put on the table was not enough. We saw those explosive accounts during the Senate inquiry, an inquiry, of course, the government themselves didn't even want to have happen. Now we know why, because they didn't want to be under pressure to improve this law. But I'm sceptical that what the government has put forward is, they know they have to be seen to be doing something, but what they've got is virtually useless. And so it's more of a smokescreen than it is a bill that's actually going to protect people.
One of the things that we heard late this afternoon from Annika Wells was that they would put forward the idea of an industry levy, that is, the gambling industry would pay for this one-stop shop register rather than people having to do individual opt-outs with individual companies. Do you support the industry levy?
Well, I think the industry should be levied a lot more, let's be honest. I mean, firstly, they should pay more tax. Secondly, they should be paying for the harm that their industry is causing Australian families right across the country. And Sarah, you know what they really should be forced to do is to pay back the profits that they have made off money that has been stolen and then gambled, whether that's family members who have had money or property stolen from them to fulfil their loved ones' gambling habits, whether it's businesses who have had money stolen from them. There's plenty of ways to put the torch on the gambling industry, but the government is taking the easy road here. This is such a just stark example of where vested interests have way too much power here in Canberra. It is not going to shift the dial on gambling harm. Young people are still going to be bombarded with advertising. Gambling addicts are still going to be groomed and induced into gambling. And the gambling companies are still going to bank massive profits.
Yeah, all right. Let me just come back on this idea of the opt-out system, though. There didn't seem to be any support for an opt-in system, which would essentially be the equivalent of people choosing to have advertisements. So do you think that a well-run opt-out system could be effective, although falling short of what you wanted?
Yeah. Look, I mean, the reason the government said to me, point blank, why they couldn't do an opt-in system is because it would basically be a ban on advertising, i.e. it would work. People don't want ads and they could turn them off, so it would work. So therefore, the opt-out system is a much weaker approach. And to be honest, Sarah, I've got no idea how the government thinks this is going to operate. I mean, the idea that you can you can opt out of all corners of the internet, I mean, it just beggars belief that any serious policy brain has put this forward. I don't know whose idea it was. Maybe it was Angus Taylor's, maybe it was the Prime Minister's, but it's certainly come from someone who doesn't know how the internet actually works.
All right, now what about what is being put forward, and we don't have the detail yet tonight, but restrictions on inducements. What would be a threshold change to the way inducements are offered by gambling companies that could draw you to the point where you could support the bill?
Look, inducements are obviously something that's really caught people's attention because the gambling companies use them to groom problem gamblers. They suck them in, they promise them tickets and the feeling of being special, invitations to VIP parties. By the way, Sarah, some of the evidence and correspondence I've had from people who have been involved in the industry and have been involved in these inducements. You know what the industry calls these VIP parties? Loser parties. Loser parties, because they only invite the losers. If you're winning in gambling, you're not on the VIP list. They don't want you. They only want you if you're a big loser. So the question is, should these inducements exist at all? Look, frankly, I don't believe they should. I think it's very hard when you're confronting young men, young women, people with a gambling addiction and saying, look, we'll give you some free tickets to the football. You can have a jersey with from your favourite team. We'll even fly you business class to the next special race. I mean, those types of inducements are used to groom people, just like the predators that the gambling industry are. They groom people and then suck them in and take their money. Inducements should be gone.
All right, let's just understand about the politics of this current situation, because these discussions between the government and the coalition are not yet concluded. There were very strong voices in the opposition, led by Simon Kennedy, talking about the need to improve the bill as it was put forward by the government. What's happened to that push from inside the coalition, as far as you know?
Look, I think this is very interesting. And I just want to say, I know there are good people in the Liberal Party who want this law to go further. They know that if you only do a labyrinth of half measures with so much complexity that it's full of loopholes, the industry can continue to get around it. There are good people in the Liberal Party who know that. There are good people in the government who know that.
So what happened in those negotiations?
Look, I think what's happened is that Angus Taylor is not up to the job. He is a weak leader, and I think he's been spooked by Pauline Hanson and One Nation. And sadly, Sarah, it seems as though Angus Taylor has listened to Pauline Hanson rather than John Howard. I mean, it's not every day I agree with John Howard, but he has been very forthright in his opinion here. Stop the gambling ads. It's harmful. Let people gamble, that's fine. But stop the ads, because that's where the harm is done. But Angus Taylor's listened to Pauline Hanson rather than John Howard.
All right, we'll see what emerges tomorrow. In the meantime, Senator Hanson-Young, thank you very much indeed for joining us.
Thank you.
Thank you.